attacks and blocks of swordplay. And how this basically works is each of them has 4 basic starting moves, and Mr. Enzo will be with the attacking, and Mr. Fickle will be defending. And a 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody catch that? Yeah. Show them again. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all basic moves that just about everybody would have drilled into them at the beginning of, well, boyhood. Everybody would want to know how to use a weapon properly, especially if you're going to be doing something, oh, say, military, like either being in the Navy, the Army, or piracy. Now, every so often, though, you also find gentlemen that are going to be boarding a ship from one to the next. And so what they're going to want to have on them are these, because, well, these work out pretty well. Now, before we actually get into them killing each other for your amusement, we're going to also pass 2 of these over, and we're going to give you a basic demonstration as to how these doohickeys work. Now, these 2 gentlemen are going to come up towards the front of the stage a little bit, and these 2 gentlemen are going to go a little bit halfway up so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. Now, I know, wait, none of these like the other ones. Well, you find a lot of that on pirate ships because you take whatever you possibly could. However, they all work more or less the same. These are all flintlock weapons, so they all have the basic lock mechanism that works the same way year-round. Now what we're going to do is, can everybody get their batteries open and their hammers down to the down position? That made no sense to most of you in the audience, did it? It did to me. Excellent. Alright. Basically how these work is, whoever has heard of the old term lock, stock, and barrel? I have. Okay, it's a fairly common word around here. Who here knows that that's actually kind of a thing that was made up here in New England? This expression comes to us from the fact that during our old colonial times, you could not outright buy a gun from good old Mother Britain. Reason being that guns are dangerous. However, everybody, for the most part, would have at least one gun in the home because they were used for everything from defending yourself to aggravating the neighbors. But also they were important for doing little things in life such as hunting, which just about everybody did back then. So not being able to buy a gun outright was kind of hard, so there was a definite niche market in there. Well, at one point in time, there was a very, very smart merchant that figured, well, I can't sell him a whole gun. However, I have this whole ship and it has a lot of room in it, so I'm going to fill certain crates with the stock of the gun. I'm going to fill other crates with the locking mechanism. And I'm going to fill furthermore other crates with the barrel of the gun. And when I bring them to my shop, well, I can't sell it as an outright gun, but I can sell them everything they need to make their own gun: lock, stock, and barrel. Hence the expression. Because when you own that complete set, you own it lock, stock, and barrel. Now, each of these is made up of a couple of things, and actually my borrow for just one moment to give a demonstration of what everything is. If you can't see mine, try to look at the ones that are also up the road. These have several important parts. This is what is known as both the cock and the hammer, based on the shape of the head. If it's a very squared off piece, it is usually known as a hammer. If it has that nice little round piece like ours here do, I don't think anybody here has a proper hammer here, but all of us have what is known as a cock. Reason being that everybody thought it looked like the head of a chicken. And in this, you would put a piece of flint. Flint is very important in a flintlock, otherwise they don't work. And what you do to begin this, or rather, let me keep going over the parts. You also have, this is called the battery. The battery is very important because that is the part that the flint strikes on. And if the flint strikes it just right, it creates sparks. You also have what's called a frizzen pan, or a priming pan. That is what you put the beginnings of gunpowder into, so that you can make everything work. See, down here at the end of the priming pan is what is called a touch hole. Touch hole is a very small hole that goes into the bottom of the barrel. This is your barrel. Your barrel is where you put your main charge and your ball and your wadding, and it's what death comes out of if everything goes according to plan. And you also the trigger, etc., etc. I'm going to hand this back to you, and we're going to go over the steps that you would use to actually arm yourself. Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your cock and you're going to put it into a half-cocked position. Was that 4 or was that 3 clicks? Alright, once you have your cock in the half-cocked position, your gun is relatively safe. It should not be able to fire. Who here's heard the expression, don't go off half-cocked? Again, this is where that comes from. There's actually a lot of modern-day expressions that come from this time in history. Now, once you have your guns in the half-cocked position, what you then do, typically back in the day, you'd either have a little priming flask of powder, or you'd have a pre-made cartridge. If you had a pre-made cartridge in a manly fashion, right off the top of it, and you'd pour a little bit of powder into that priming pan. You then close down your battery. If your battery is correctly on there, that should then be watertight against the barrel, which is very good because water and gunpowder do not mix well. From there, you would upend your gun. You would pour down the rest of your powder. Typically speaking, if you had a pre-made cartridge, that little bit at the top that you bit off, that would actually have a ball in it, and you spit it right down the barrel. You then take your wadding, that was formerly your cartridge, and you jam them into the top, and you remove your ramrod. With your ramrod, using as little of your hand as humanly possible, usually about that much, you then pack everything down there into the rest of the barrel, making it nice and tight. And then you replace your ramrod. Anybody want to take a guess as to why you want to use as little bit of your hand as possible when ramming everything home? Because you might blow it off. Our current quartermaster learned how to fire from a man that had these 2 fingers. Because he lost them when a fire, well, a misfire happened. Is that really a misfire? Anyway, it went on. So yes, you want to try to keep as low as your hand as possible. Well, once all that's in, you then go to the full cocked position. At your own time, Doc. Everybody in full cock? You then would bring your gun to bear. Nowadays, we call that aiming. Since we're in an enclosed space, and we actually do believe in fire safety, where it's not going to actually be firing here. But then, what you do is you would squeeze the trigger, and when the cock went forward, the flint that is inside of it would hit the.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. I don't want to go.
Fair enough. But once that go forward, sparks would be created. They'd light your gunpowder that was in the priming pan, and then boom, death comes out the other side. Now the really fun thing is that pirates would oftentimes do things to cheat. Oddly enough, instead of throwing 1 ball down a gun, they could throw 2, 3, 4. Remember when we were talking about the filibuster down in the Caribbean? Well, they would oftentimes throw several shots down there. You also had wonderful things like Mr. McKinnon there is holding a blunderbuss. Anybody here ever hear of a blunderbuss? Now there's a lot of rumors that they would load this with any old thing, rocks and pottery shards and broken glass, etc. These are actually semi-true. You could fire a lot of fun things out of a blunderbuss. Oftentimes what they do is they they pack in a single ball and then what's called partridge shot, and then they throw in another ball on top of that and then ram all that home. And when it went off, ye olde shotgun. Now, unfortunately, on occasion, instead of going boom, you hear click, and then usually a groan. Because these are not always precise. Well, that being said, we'll get back to a little bit more of this presentation. So, gentlemen, as you both have pistols, let's show them how a good old-fashioned duel would usually go. See, if these gentlemen had caused affront to each other, which I'm sure they have in the past, they would start off back to back. Then they would take 10 paces. You might have to shorten this down to 5. Turn, bring to bear, and fire. Now, this seems like not that much space, right? this is about the limit to accuracy that these weapons would actually have in this sort of a situation. At which time they could shake hands and agree that God was on their side if they were both surviving, or they could flip it around and club each other like baby seals. But gentlemen, I'm going to let you have a bit of fun, and
It's going to be fun for him.
The guy in red always gets killed.